Now on page 17, and the question says, look at the passage, Voyages Around the World, and find the first verb in the passage and write it here. And if you know your parts of speech, a verb is a doing word. So we're looking for the first word that tells us what someone is doing. In the 15th century, most people still thought that the world was flat. So thought is the first verb in that one. And you have to spell it correctly because you're copying it straight from the passage. And then what type of word or what part of speech is the word century? Now, if you can put a quick and easy method to remember, if you can put a or the in front of a word and it still makes sense, it's a noun. So century is a noun because it's the name of a thing. Now, it's not a thing that you can actually see, but you could say the century or you could say a century, and that makes it a noun. Now, page 18, and the poem is The Ogre. And I'll read it again because, if you hear me saying the words, some of them are a bit tricky and you might not have heard them. It might help to make a little bit more sense. In a foul and filthy cavern where the sun has never shone, the one-eyed ogre calmly gnaws a cold and mouldy bone. He sits in silence in the slime that fills his fetid home and notes the nearing footsteps in the monstrous catacomb. The one-eyed ogre drools with joy, his stony heart beats fast. He knows that for some girl or boy, this day shall be their last. And the poet was Jack Prelutsky. And it's important to read that too, sometimes it comes in. And based on what you have read, circle the best word in each set of 4 below. This is a very, very typical question, so it's really important you have a good understanding of the poem. And the tip is, read every word, insert every word into the sentence and find the one that fits best. Because there might be 2 or a couple of words that could fit in, but you have to go back and according to the poem, which is the best word. So number 30. At the beginning of the poem, the sun is sitting in his, or the ogre is sitting in his, the boy is sitting in his, or the bone is sitting in his. We know in the poem it mentions the ogre, it mentions the boy, it mentions the bone, but only one of them is sitting somewhere. So it was the ogre was sitting in his dark cave, his cold cave, his sunny cave, his shiny cave. Well, the word, it described it as fetid, and the cave is also like a catacomb, so that would be in the dark. And was it hot? Was it dark and hot cave? Dark and nearby cave? Dark and dirty cave? Dark and mouldy cave? And again, the word mouldy is mentioned. And if you haven't read the poem carefully, you'll think, yeah, mouldy's up there, it must be mouldy. But mouldy is referring to the bone. It was a mouldy bone. So mouldy's not the cave. And it says his cave was fetid. So dirty would be the best word to go with that. So he was sitting in his dark and dirty cave. Was he beating? Was he listening? Was he chewing? Or was he sucking? And the best word of those to go with the bone, we know he was drooling while he was eating the bone, would be chewing. And he was chewing on a drum, on a child, on a heart, on a bone. And again it says, look, there's a boy or a girl. You think, he's going to eat a boy or a girl. But that's not the case. If you read the poem carefully, you'd know that he was actually chewing on a bone. And then there's 1 mark for each of those that you got right. And then the last 4, we have to find 4 adjectives that the writer uses to describe the ogre's home. And adjectives are describing words. It tells us what it looks like, or what it smells like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. And they would have been, it was foul. That word's up there. It was filthy. It was fetid, and that might not have been a word you had heard of before. But there you go, now you know it, and you'll know what it means again. And it is monstrous. And remember, You have to spell them right because you're copying them from the passage straight down there. So copy it carefully, word for word.